We're scared we can't survive. We're scared we're going to have a stroke. We're scared we're going to have a heart attack. We're scared our wives are not going to love us if they, I
Yeah.
think he said something like if they see the real us or if they know the real us.
Mm.
Um,
Oof.
he said that all of this, he mentioned the private struggle that men have.
Yeah.
Um, this results in toxic masculinity, he said.
Mhm.
And he said most men think they're the only ones that are going through it.
Isn't that what I told you earlier? That's what I got from it. It's like, you're not alone. I think that's what is killing our men so early.
Yeah.
Because I mean, and this past week is so fresh to think about.
Hey, everyone. Let's start healing. I'm Adrienne Murchison, and welcome to another episode of the Let's Start Healing podcast. We have more in common than we think, and what we have in common can change the world. This episode, I really wanted to do with my friend Sandra McIntosh. She is an empowerment coach, a business coach of her own business, 90 Day Wins, and her own podcast, 90 Day Wins, where she empowers people who have different goals in life, business goals in life. And we like to chat about all different kinds of things through each of our podcast endeavors. So I asked her to come here and join me for this particular conversation, and it is around men's mental health as a result of watching two different podcasts, both with Kirk Franklin. One, the one that really was pushing different buttons within me. And I think it's interesting that I found that it was pushing buttons for me because I watched it again and I said, why was it landing for me in certain ways? But I still really wanted to talk about the conversation from his appearance on Dr. Jay Barnett's podcast called Just Heal. And that conversation I watched after I watched Kirk Franklin's podcast, Den of Kings, where he had Dr. Jay Barnett on, Jonathan Majors, Kev on Stage, the rapper NLE. I don't want to mess up his last name because I want to say, I want to think Deepak Chopra, and I know it's not Chopra. So the rapper NLE and Ray J were on this podcast episode that a lot of people have seen and have been talking about. And that was focused on men's mental health and religion and spirituality. But this one with Kirk Franklin, with Dr. Jay Barnett, he really shared Kirk Franklin really shared a lot of things from his perspective that men deal with. He was sharing details of the nuances of things that men go through. And I wanted to have a conversation with a uh, girlfriend about how these things land for us. And I've had conversations in the past, very recent past, with fellow podcasters and family members, my cousin Charles Gilbert and my nephew John Russell Murchison. I'm laughing because I want to say his full name, and he always says I don't have to say all those words. Anyway, uh, as I said, I wanted to have this conversation with Sandra. So we're going to get to it right now. And if you are just coming to Let's Start Healing for the first time, this is a spiritual based podcast where I talk to people about their spiritual path and their connection to God and their personal connection, their personal relationship and God or their higher power, and how they navigate that relationship in everyday life and in living authentically and being true to themselves and to their heart and their spirit. And we can talk about anything on this podcast as it relates to that, as long as it's rooted in love, as long as we're coming from a place of love. But it can be joy or it can be pain, because we've all been through a lot of things along our respective journeys. And that was one of the reasons, um, I would say pain, loneliness, coming through personal trials is one of the things that led me to launching this podcast, more than 100 episodes, more than 180 episodes ago, and quite a few years ago now, because it was through my own, I would say, loneliness and definitely some pain and loss and grief, and working through that with God, and working through self esteem issues, for sure, with God, was definitely through my own spiritual journey, my own relationship with God. And I really had a desire to, really, as much as I can in my own way, let people know that you are never alone. We are never alone. No matter what you're going through, you are never alone. It might feel like it, but there is definitely a holy, holy, divine spirit with you that is God. So, uh, more to come, but let's get to my conversation with Sandy B, and let's start healing. Welcome, Sandy B.
Thank you for having me, Adrian.
Oh, thank you for doing this with me. This topic. Thank you so much. Well, first of all, how you doing today on
I
a
am I'm
scale
doing
of 1 to
good.
10?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I think I would say I am a 7.
7?
Yes,
7.
yes.
And would you say that, like, in your connection, like your personal relationship and how you're vibing with
Mhm.
God today, would you say it's about a 7 also, or?
No, vibing with God, I had a nice long walk today at a park that I don't get to go to, so it actually gave me some moments of meditation. So me and God are good. Like we
Yeah,
are higher than 7. I 7 is just like the energy. I'm tired today. I
yeah,
actually need to get the rest. So I'm paying attention to it.
good.
Yeah.
Good,
Yeah.
good, good. When I was thinking about this conversation, I
Uh-huh.
said, I wanna just ask you this, like, upfront. Would
Hmm.
you say that you are a healer or a seeker?
Hmm. Interesting question. I think off top of my head, I probably say I'm a seeker.
You're a seeker.
Yes, off top of my head, I'd say I'm a seeker. Yeah.
And I know people see you as a healer as well.
I'm
Yeah.
sure, but I think I don't know. I just feel like healing is so intense.
Mhm.
Like if you're willing to do the work of the healing, right? So I just feel sometimes I just feel like I'm not equipped to to help people heal because there are just some really difficult things that I feel like, you need someone with some extra understanding
Mhm.
to walk this journey with you. So that's why I would say I'm a seeker.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I am really happy that we're gonna be talking about this topic. I asked you to watch this podcast.
Hmm.
It's actually called Just Heal by
Yes.
Dr. Jay Barnett, and Kirk Franklin was on, and it was really touching me. It was pushing some of my buttons.
Hmm.
When I watched it the first time, I actually watched it again, and I was like, I
Yeah.
wonder why this was really like pushing my buttons.
Yeah.
And I wrote some notes and stuff, but uh, to what you just said, uh,
Hmm.
one of them said something that speaks to what you said about, Barnett said this, uh, what you just said about, like, maybe we need to be healing, but we're trying to heal other people and how we might feel about that. And
Mhm.
they were talking about that concept and they both agreed, like, that's the journey, right? They were saying
Yeah.
that that's the journey. But Barnett said it's healing while bleeding at the same time.
Ooh. Yeah. Yeah.
I was like,
He
whoa, that's deep.
I really appreciate the way he talked about what he was experiencing. I mean, even if you think of what he shared about his upbringing and
Mhm,
the way he looked at things and thought, where he shared with his relationship with his dad being a minister, being a pastor, and, having literally seeing his dad help other people, but him
mhm.
feeling as if, like, what about me? And
Yeah,
even to notice how that thought and that mindset kind of followed him now, where
mhm.
he's talking about opportunities he has, right? And how he's feeling as if, God has equipped him to do this, but it's like, who's here to help take care of me? So it was
Yeah,
very, very interesting. Very
mhm. Yeah, and I think that that's I didn't think that in the moment, but as you're saying it, I feel like that is a healthy thought because it's a way to maybe stay tapped into nurturing yourself.
totally, because,
Yeah,
especially as someone, working with people, helping them heal, you're pouring out. And so you've got to make sure that you're always being poured into so you don't but deplete yourself. And
mhm.
so I think he was being very transparent to say, well, who's going to be here for me? How
Yeah,
am I going to make sure that I have what I need so I can continue to do this work? So
yeah.
it was just really, really good. Really good.
It was, and I was thinking about something that occurred to me with this topic. So I
Hmm.
talk about, with my nephew and my cousin,
Hmm.
and they're in their 30s and 40s, and I talk to them, men's mental health will come up because, they might be
Hmm.
watching something, a podcast or something, and they'll drop it in the chat we're
Yeah.
in, and I don't know, I feel I'm like, I'm like, "What is this thing about men's mental health for me? Like, how is this landing for me?" And I
Hmm.
think sometimes I feel a couple of things. I have carried for years a feeling around men, and you and I talked about this in terms of how you feel about it a little bit.
Hmm.
I've carried something for years about how Black men take care of themselves. And it's
Yeah.
really bothered me and concerned me because men in my family have died young. And so if friends passed away, at a young age or,
Yeah.
extended family have passed away at a young age, it's really just gripped me, and hurt me and because, of the love that I have for them. And
Yeah.
so now we're talking about men's mental health, and as it was coming about, as the topic was arising over the last year that I feel like it's been bubbling up and now
Yeah.
it's here in full force. And
Uh-huh.
as it's been coming up, I think I've been feeling like, you know, um, well, we have a lot to talk about, you know, women's pain,
Yeah.
also. And so I'm becoming much more sensitive and not as selfish around the thought, like we can talk
Yeah.
about both, but
Yeah.
there's, I guess there's a fear that women's pain can get lost. And but I'm appreciating these conversations because it's really helping me to drop down some walls, I think, in just bringing greater enlightenment to me about what men are going through.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation to have, right? Because as women and as Black women, I don't feel it. I don't feel. Uh, I don't feel any. What's the word? Like hindrance or challenge for me to be able to express how I'm feeling. and especially with a girlfriend or a cousin or a sister, it's easy for me to say, you know what, I was really frustrated by what happened yesterday, and really be able to go in and, especially with my closer friends, really able to kind of work it out and talk about how I was feeling and why I was feeling the way. And usually by the time I get off the phone or leave from that conversation, I'm feeling like I can handle it and I can deal with it. But it seems as if men obviously don't really have those deep conversations. And then when they try to, based on what I'm learning, whether it's another male who's making fun of them for having a vulnerable moment, or even, you know, a girlfriend, a wife, even a mother, right? Like
Mhm.
having something derogatory to say to them in that moment, and then them just feeling like they closed up. One of the things I heard, and I think it was on this podcast, a man say that their vulnerability is all they have. So
Mhm.
if they give that vulnerability to a woman and it is not cared for, and they feel as if they're being judged, it's like they will close up and they're not wanting to share that. And so I
Mhm.
just thought that was so interesting that one, they would think that that's all they had.
Yeah.
And so I wrote down that everyone wants to be heard, but no one wants to listen, because it kind of feels like, and a little bit in that interview where he was talking about, where Kirk Franklin was sharing his his journey and the things he was experiencing, when he said about, and the women don't understand it just the way he said it and the way they responded to it, and it's like they were in agreement, like, yeah, the women don't get it, we don't get it at all. And so I just thought it was really interesting, because it's like, we don't get it. We don't really. We don't get it. These helpmates that are here, they don't get it.
Mhm.
We don't get it. We see you every day toiling and going through what you're going through, but we don't get it. And I wonder if it's that we don't get it, or you don't feel comfortable sharing with us.
Do you remember which part that was? Because I'm wondering if it was in this one particular
So that was
point.
where it was Dr. Barnett and Kurt alone in that interview, where Kurt was saying that, like, the women don't get it, where he was explaining how he was trying to work through the things, and Dr. Barnett was telling him, so kind of like, what about the women? He's like, yeah, the women don't get it. He was like, yeah, that's so true. It might have been one of those times where he ripped how he was
Yeah.
ripping his
Yeah.
card. Like, I have my little card here, mine is plastic, I can't
Mhm.
rip it. But I just thought it was so fascinating, because I think that is how men feel. I really think they feel like we don't get it. But as a woman, I know a lot of us feel as if they don't get it. They don't get it that I'm here, right? Like,
Right.
they don't get it that, like, God, I believe as a married woman, God has put me, joined together me with this man for us to walk this journey together. So I'm here to help you. I'm your helpmate. But if you act like you don't want my help, like, what am I supposed to do?
Mhm.
And so I think a lot of times we have to kind of take a step back and say, okay, am I doing something that is hindering you? Because really, that's not the goal here. And it has to do with communication. I mean, I can't I can't know everything. So you're going to have to communicate with me. You're going to have to tell me, you know what, this is really tough right now. But if you don't say it, I'm not, how can I know? And I just thought it was really interesting the way Kurt was just sharing literally how his world is and how he looks at things and how he's so driven personally, right? And so it's kind of like him being aware that he is very driven, and he is, like, ridiculously focused on what he wants, and it's kind of like the family needs to fit into it. And oh, by the way, I do have these responsibilities, and so I'm gonna do my best, but ultimately like, this is who I am and I'm working my stuff out. So I appreciate him for being so candid, but I would have loved to have his wife there with him.
Yeah. I mean, I thought that he was saying that, he's a perfectionist. This
Mm-hmm.
is his passion. This is his lane. And he was being real honest, I thought,
Uh-huh.
and authentic about talking about how, uh, he, the money, when he was like, it may look like, I'm making this, but I'm not necessarily making this at whatever point in time.
Yeah.
But the family may have these needs. And I say yes. That's what we do. We say yes. So, and then I have to work it out. That means he's got to work it out because he's giving and spending what he doesn't have.
But
So
see,
that
that's what I have issue
doing.
with. That's what I have issue with. Because remember, we're in a family, we're in a unit. So if you're not communicating to me, remember, he clearly said some things Tammy didn't know. There are too many things that your wife doesn't know that you have to hold all the pressure, Adrian, of figuring it out.
Yeah.
So you see how you are actually kind of self-inflicting some of that pain because you didn't talk with her about it. Because it's like, if you want the help, you got to communicate, right? Like, you're going through some difficult things. I mean, it's the age old story, but it's just so funny. It's like, we've got to get past the point where we feel like the other sex doesn't understand. Well,
Yeah.
what can we do to help them understand? And then it's like, I could go to that other podcast episode that we watched, because there were some other people that talked about things that, the doctor could look at and be like, that's what I would like to have.
Mhm. Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
really interesting,
I
really.
I I wanna say too that I think that when they were saying, like, women don't get it, because there was
Uh-huh.
one part, I was like, "Okay, this is opening my eyes, more." Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know that men bond in a wonderful way.
Mm-hmm.
I know that men can really bond, but they were talking about a sense of belonging and a sense of, um, a me too,
Mm-hmm.
really like having a me too movement for men,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
men don't necessarily communicate the pain.
Yeah.
So one person is going through something, two people might be going through the same thing and never let each other know, like two male
Mhm.
friends.
Yes. Yes.
And but if they did know, then, that can help, them along their journey to know that they're not alone. And
Totally.
the need for that, when they talked about the need for that, that was enlightening for me. No,
It,
I didn't I didn't have that deep of an awareness.
yeah. So I've been talking to my husband about men and their being able to share and be vulnerable, because we're at that age where we're seeing a lot of our friends, a lot of our families get divorced. And so you always are, I just find myself saying, like, what did we miss? What did we not see? Like, and I'm always kind of pushing, like, call him, and I'm going to call her, and I'm going to do this. And it's like, in my mind, I'm trying to understand, to reconcile, to say, well, what conversation wasn't had? Like, how does this happen? And I think it's just, we have to go deep. We have to truly talk about what we're experiencing, what we're feeling, how, what, when that happened, that kind of triggered me. And I know a little bit about my family, but this brought me back to this situation where I experienced this with my father. Like, we got to do the deep work. I think we are having these surface level conversations. And in my opinion, the men that I know, I feel like they're doing that. I've had discussion with my husband, and he's kind of like, well, honey, things like, I could call and say, hey, Adrian, how's this going? But it's not that he would pick up and do that very quickly with another man,
Mhm,
because it's
mhm.
kind of like that unspoken thing. I mean, they can go play basketball together, they could go watch a game, and nothing deep ever comes up from it. And it's
Yeah,
like, what is happening? Like, did you not know this? No, we don't talk about that, honey.
yeah,
We're just
yeah,
watching the game.
yeah,
Because it seemed like Kurt wanted, like, desired that that bonding of, men watching sports. And I was just thinking like, yeah, and all they do is watch sports.
Yeah.
Like they're
Mhm.
not,
Talking.
having these
Yeah.
conversations to say, yeah, I think she's going to leave me and I don't know what I'm going to do. That's
Yeah.
probably very vulnerable for them, but it's like, when are you going to get to the point where you are able to say, man, I'm not doing good. I'm
Yeah.
having a problem.
Mhm.
I need someone to talk to.
Mhm.
Even Kurt talked about a mentor of his that was going through something similar like him. Not one shared it with him. I don't get that. If I call
Exactly.
and tell you I have a podcast problem, if you don't know about it, you're going to call your nephew, you're going to call someone to help figure it out with me. You're not just going to say, "Oh, okay, you have that problem," and silent. What are we doing?
I completely agree. I was seeing someone and he was having an issue with his best friend from childhood.
Okay.
Best friend, like just something like that friends, like say if you did something
Hmm.
that, just bothered me. And I was like,
Yeah.
it really bothers me when she does that. And, I just feel taken advantage of,
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
something like that. Right.
Yeah.
And this would happen over and over again. And so I
Mhm.
said, why don't, and I know that this friend loves him.
Yeah.
Right. So I
Yeah.
said, why don't you talk to him about it? Tell
Exactly.
him how you feel. I'm not gonna do that, like, I just, like, that was a dumb idea I had, you know? I'm not gonna do that. Just forget about that. That's not gonna happen.
But see, those type of things, in my mind, that's a red flag because one, you're not trying to deal with something that it can lead to other things. And so you're letting me know that you're rigid. Like you don't want to, if it seems too difficult or, um, it may cause conflict, you want no parts of it.
Yeah.
That's a huge flag for me.
No, there were lots of flags like that that I ignored. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And
I
that's a good thing to say. I like that word you use, ignored, because
mhm,
I think a lot of women use that, ignore things, and then they just kind of escalate. And then it's like you decide you want to deal with this and you're going to address it. But then it's like, well, why didn't you tell me that 2 years ago you were upset about it?
yeah,
Or you're
yeah,
like, you know what, this is a lost cause and I've had enough and I'm moving on. Right. And so it's like, how can we address those things in the moment with some grace? There's a lot of grace that has to happen, but to be able to have those conversations and to say, like, you know what, yesterday there was something going on with you. What happened that kind of triggered that for you? But that is you allowing yourself to be vulnerable, allowing yourself to know that this is worth fighting for. And so it's doing that hard work. It is not easy. Like it's funny, I look and think like, wow, like 21 years, but it has been a lot of work, a lot of talking, and you never get to that point in life where you feel like, okay, we got it smooth, because it'll be one thing and I'll be like, oh my goodness, like really? Okay. So we got to talk about this, right? So what was the trigger for you and why did you behave in that way? And and it's all those things. And but it's like, if I love this person and I want to have a future with this person, I got to do the work. So that's why I so appreciated what Kurt talked about. That analogy he gave about having to switch your brain to be in the family again after being away doing different things. And he talked about Mike Tyson being this assassin in the ring and then going to the PTA. And I thought that was so interesting. But here's the thing for me. But I can tell you as a businesswoman, I got to show up in this corporate setting and do all this work and take care of all these things and manage all this money. Then I got to turn around and come home and cook. I got to turn around, come home and eat. I got to turn around, come home and do homework. So we all have our roles, sir. So that's why we got to communicate. So if you're coming home and you just been on tour and you're like, babe, I'm tired. I really can't be present in that. I got to respect that. Same way if I'm telling you, you know what, babe, I'm tired and I just like, I can't cook tonight. Okay, we can order something out, or okay, I can cook it. So that's where I was looking at and say, like, everyone wants to be heard, but no one wants to listen. Because in both of those scenarios, me being the wife that's going out, that's coming in, but then I still have the responsibilities at home, it just is, right? I chose this life. I can communicate and say what's working for me, what's not working for me, but I chose this. I chose to have this child. I chose to have this husband. So, me, I sit in the car when I was going out to that job because there was a stat that I read years ago that said after work, that's when those arguments happen. So I come home from work, I sit in the car, get myself right. So when I go in there, I can be wife and mother because they don't really care about the drama that I had at work that day
Mhm.
because I got to show up and be who I am. It's our responsibilities, Kurt. You do have these children. You do. Yeah, I can imagine it is like hard to kind of switch that off, but that's what everyone has to do, right? That stay-at-home mom that has to be home all day with her kids. And then her husband comes home. Well, what does he need her to do? Whatever number of things, right? And then, oh, by the way, the kids have been touching me all day. Do you really think I want you to touch me? But guess what? I'm a wife. There are certain expectations, right? So, how do we have these conversations with you not feeling uncomfortable and me not feeling uncomfortable, you not being felt like you're being taken advantage of? Because in that scenario where Kurt was saying, you know, we just have to say yes, no, sir, you don't always have to say yes when we really should be saying no.
Yeah.
And he, in the other podcast episode, he did talk about his wife and how she, no, I think he even said it in that, like, she didn't do anything wrong. And it was interesting because she has a podcast that I've listened to. His wife, Tammy, has a podcast. And so it's interesting to hear him talking and her talking because definitely there's love, but I just like the way he just kept it totally real to say, like, our mental health. And a lot of times it's what men are believing, not actually what's true, but what they've told themselves. So they told themselves because of past stuff, this woman is not going to be there for me. This woman can't be trusted because maybe my mom in the past or a girlfriend in the past, you know, or my grandma raised me a certain way. So you already have that thought of how women are, but don't women do that as well? Say, oh, these type of men, I got to stay away from them because my grandpa and my uncle, and I had that boyfriend back then that was like it. So on both sides, like you said, it's a me too, right? But it's like, okay, we've both been hurt and we've caused hurt with each other, right? Men and women. How can we heal? How can you feel comfortable to share and we actually listen, you know, so we can hear you?
I think it's I think it's also that we are built differently. If we're talking about men and women. Now, if
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about two women who are together as a couple,
Yeah.
then, they're built the same, to me, like in
Yeah.
the way that I'm thinking about it. They're built the
Okay.
same. But,
Okay.
a man is not a woman and a
Yeah.
woman is not a man, and
Yeah.
we're built differently. So we have different needs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also, when you were talking about how long you and your husband have been together, you're
Mm-hmm.
both evolving as individuals over those years.
Totally.
So you're
Totally.
learning yourself and your needs change, for both of you.
Yes.
So I think a lot of it is, you know, to remember that, you know, a man is a man and a man has certain sensibilities and needs, and a woman is a woman and she has certain sensibilities and needs. And sometimes they blend, sometimes, they can be the same. But the communication to me, I'm so with you when you're talking about how you have to let each other know because, I've been in relationships where I think that first of all, I've been in a lot, not all, but I would say 80% of the
Mm-hmm.
relationships I've been in, the men didn't have fathers in their lives. And in many cases, their mothers were emotionally abusive,
Yeah.
at a minimum. So there
Yeah.
were issues there. And I think they were drawn to me, for because emotionally they felt an emotional nurturing. I think that's why
Yeah.
they were drawn to me. But that was just in the beginning.
Mhm.
So they might be really, really open in the beginning, and then something would flip, and they might think they can't trust me with their emotions, which I don't think. I was just saying this to my nephew the other day, that I don't think anything changed with me, honestly, at the point where they would shut down.
Yeah.
I just think
Yeah.
that it was fear, that I mean, I remember just visibly, with one person, just seeing like just the fear, so just
That's why the conversations have to be had because, on the other hand, how many times have men said that, and there have been women that have talked about it, that she didn't have a father. And so I had
Mhm.
to teach her and I had to nurture her in a way. Monique talks about that very openly about her husband and how her husband nurtured her and showed her kind of like this is the love of a father
Yeah,
because she didn't have it. And so it's very interesting to
yeah,
hear when I heard Kurt talk about not having a father. And, we take it for granted that these things, these hurts that we are experiencing, that we're working through, they are deep and they start in childhood, what we experienced and what we went through with the parent figure. And it's just, I think that's where we've got to have these deep conversations. And, because I've been married so long, I haven't had to have these conversations. I've had to have it girlfriends, right? And even some guy friends, but not me going through it. So I just know based on how I move through and look at things. But very early on, we had to have some conversations. And it just so happened that my mother in law, God rest her soul, like when we started dating, she was going through complications and, just watching him handle that and deal with it and see how much he loved his mother. Because one of the things my grandma told me growing up is a man that loves his mother will
mhm,
be taking care of you. And so, but it was more than just, a lot of women are like, oh, like he's so influenced by his mom and he can't think for himself. It wasn't that type of thing. It was a genuine love and respect for his mom. But I appreciated the way he could kind of let her know, like, you're getting out of order here. Like, come on, mom. But I really observed that because I wanted to understand and I wanted to understand his love for his mother because my grandmother planted it in my head like, you want to observe that with the guys you're dating. How does he treat his mom? What type of respect does he have for his mother? And now, being 50, I can truly appreciate that. I can truly appreciate how important that is because I've seen men that don't have the love of their mothers, how they look at relationship, how they look at women. And so I tell women all the time, it's like, you see that man and you think, oh, he's this and that. Well, how do you think he got like that? Who influenced him in a bad way or a good way in his life? Who hurt him? Did a woman hurt him? And so now he has his guard up because that's no different than a woman, right? Saying she has her guard up because someone hurt her. So she can't trust anymore. She's very cautious. So that's why we've got to have these conversations. It's like, I want to know, how's your relationship with your mother? How's your relationship with your dad? Like getting to know how this person thinks, how they're operated. I mean,
yeah,
it would be helpful to have these conversations sooner than later, right? You want to hear what this person's mindset is. That's why I so appreciate what Kurt said about our mind. Men in our mind, what are we thinking? What are we believing?
yes, yes, yeah, and, to what you're saying, I had a friend, male friend, like a brother, say to me, several years ago that I had a problem with trust. And I
Mm,
was like, I don't have a problem with trust. What are you talking about? That I had a problem with trusting men. And I'm like, if
yeah.
anything, no, he said, no, that's not what he said. He said that I did have a problem with trusting men.
Hmm.
He was saying that sometimes men would have a problem trusting me because they would pick up on my distrust,
Oh,
which I thought was deep. And
yeah.
then and that really bugged me, and I
Mhm.
went into denial about it for, more than a year, I'm sure.
Mm.
And then I realized, because I had been in relationships where men weren't faithful.
Yeah.
So I
Oh,
was like, I didn't feel like I knew any man who was faithful. So,
mm,
that's just like in my mindset, or
yeah.
was my mindset. And so I had to start doing the work
Mhm.
to learn that I could trust myself.
Mm.
And I had to heal inside to trust
Yeah.
myself, so that, one, I could recognize what I need to recognize.
Yeah.
But, even so, you know, that doesn't have to do with anything. That doesn't have to do with me.
Yeah.
How somebody shows up as a person, that's on them,
Yeah.
how they show up
Oh,
as a person.
totally. Oh,
So I
totally.
had to learn to do all that work. So I'm just saying that, respectively, we all have to do the work, like they were saying, and you were saying before, like, we have to do the work so we can be a partner for someone. But if someone's not willing to be open and to be vulnerable with you,
Yeah.
then there's nothing, or with me, there's nothing I can do. And
That's
I've heard men say, uh, well, women don't want a man to be vulnerable, because then she'll think he's weak.
mm,
And that is not me.
no.
Now, I know what I consider weakness in a man,
Yeah.
and that's not what I consider weakness. A man, authentically, truly showing me his inner self and
Mhm.
talking to me, in a vulnerable way, is
Yeah.
strength to me. That's being strong to me.
That's what they don't realize, like, they don't realize that we and this was said in the other podcast, but we truly a woman that really cares for you, she doesn't even see you. She sees the you that God created. She sees that king, whereas you are still wrestling with the boy within. So she's always trying to lift you to that next level. She's always trying to see how she can come along with you, that helpmate. And so the thing about it is, though, this is a woman that wants to be there. This is a woman that's showing you by her actions, not what she says. Because, a lot of men will say, oh, well, because I've had conversations and they're like, oh, Sandy, you think different. Well, you've got to think about the type of woman you're getting with. Like, what do you really want? And I say this to women too, like, what do you really want? Because you got to be really clear about it. And you've got to understand where that person that you're looking at, like, they don't line up to it. They are not interested in growing old with you. They're not interested in taking your relationship to the next level. It's no fault of theirs, but you've got to decide a level of understanding you and what you want. Because what I think is a lot of single women put up with a lot of BS, a
Mhm.
lot of BS that make men believe certain behaviors are acceptable. And
Mhm.
so
Mhm. Mhm.
they create those habits and do those things, and it's kind of like, well, yeah, she put up with it, but that doesn't make it right, and that's not cool. So I think we need to start checking each other and saying, why are you behaving like this if you say you like this woman? Because best believe if you're dating someone and you're acting incongruent to it, I'm going to say, hey, what's up? Because this guy's trying to, do everything and you're showing him your backside. What's going on?
Did your husband watch either of the podcasts?
He did watch some of it with me. We watched the Kirk Franklin one, but then we watched the what is it called?
Den of Kings?
Den of Kings, yes. The one with the doctor and Jonathan Majors. And yeah, that was really good. Really,
Yeah,
really good.
I wanna talk about that too. What
Yes.
what what, enlightens you about men and mental health and their, uh, sensitivities in watching either of them?
I think it's so interesting to me that regardless of, man or a woman, we allow ourselves to feel like we're alone. like we're the only ones going through something. I mean, to see how each one of the men, they were talking about their thing, but I think maybe only Jonathan Majors for me, it was like understanding like, okay, this is happening to me, but there are so many other things. And I can choose to kind of move through this, knowing it's going to be difficult, know it's going to be challenges. But I just found that the way they seemed to kind of, it made me feel like I was crying that second one. It made me feel like, oh no, like you're not alone. Like from the doctor feeling despondent and him talking about his suicide attempts to, Kevin on stage talking about with his brother passing away, and it was just so many things where I thought like, how are we showing them that they don't have to do this alone? We as women, right? Like the women in their lives, like how are we not able to let them know that this is a journey you don't have to walk alone? And that's why I like the way Kevin at the end was talking about his wife. And so it's like they almost don't realize the good thing they have. Thank God he realized and married her and she stuck with him. But it's like, I wonder how many good women the doctor had that he let go because he didn't realize because he was dealing with his stuff, because he desires to be married. So it's like, how can we have the conversations and work through our stuff? Like he's talking about bleeding, right? Like we're working through our things. Yeah, it was so much. It's so
I and
much.
I it yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. And I think probably the main man that I have been sensitive to in my life
Yeah.
has been my father.
Okay.
And who he passed away at 50, and that was
Yeah.
1985.
Yeah.
And I he's the only, I mean, he's not the only man. I'm sensitive to men, period. But I
Yeah.
think now I'm just more sensitivity is coming to me because he worked, my father worked uh 2 jobs, so he might go to work at 9 in the morning and get home at 1 in the morning.
Yeah.
Every other week that was his schedule. And I'm bringing that up to say that again, I think a lot of men, they're carrying the weight of taking care of the whole family. Like
Yeah.
everything, rests on, their shoulders to keep it up. Even if both are working, they are the leader of the house, and and they're in the dynamic,
Hmm.
in their minds, and they have to keep this afloat. It's on their shoulders to keep this afloat, and for
Hmm.
them to, show up in a certain way, as a provider in a certain way. And
Yeah.
I respect that, and I'm sensitive to it, more. I'm sensitive to it more and more.
Yeah.
And
And phew, it's
and
it's
I
interesting.
feel like that was some of the I don't know if they spoke to that directly. I mean, Kirk Franklin did,
Yeah.
but I think that was some of the things they were getting to in the one-on-one conversation.
Yes, and I believe that a lot of times this is why that conversation is so important, because it's like I tell my clients, you have this small business, it doesn't mean you have to do it all. I think we get caught up in what society's norms are, right? And so it's like, well, you should do this and you should do that. And I literally had to tell my mother, don't try to tell us how we should be doing it up here, respectfully, because I'm not going to be the one that's going to do all the things all the time. And he's not either. We're going to work together. We're going to talk about how we're moving through, because it's like, I think it's unrealistic to say, oh, the man has to do everything. And that's why, these last couple of years, we've been hearing these things, and men are looking like, what is wrong with them? Oh, I just want to be taken care of. That's not realistic, my friend. That is not realistic. And then even when Kurt said, we had to be in this house, and the kids had to look a certain way and all these things. And then he's trying to work it out with the IRS. That is so real. But also, how about we think about how we don't spend as much? I mean, come on. I'd rather have you around and not have you up at night worrying about it, or physically not with me, Adrian, because you got to make this money.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
And then, like, how am I supposed to feel? Do you think I'm wondering if you're resenting me because you're working to provide for me? Like, it just creates all these issues where we don't talk and communicate. And it's a daily thing. I tell my friends, I get up every day and I'm committed to this marriage. You can't act like, oh, it's going to carry you through, because some days you don't feel like talking. Some days you are not happy. Sometimes you're cranky. Sometimes you're just trying to work out your own thing. I appreciate where he talked about, because I've always been driven. Everything I wanted to do, I wanted to be the best at it. I want to work hard at it. And I want to, like, appreciate the fruits of my labor. I can be laser focused. When I was writing my book, I remember very clearly my daughter was like, "What's for dinner?" "The book. You want some? You can go make something for yourself, my friend." And so it's like we've got to be able to have these conversations where we say, "You know what, I need to lock in on this. Can you support me?" I remember I had just had my daughter. I sat my husband, I had already started looking for schools for grad school I was going to go to. I sat my husband and my mom down and I said, "I want to go to grad school, and I can't do this without you guys helping me. So I need your help." We want to do so many things, but we're afraid to talk about it. And it's like, you can't tell me you want to handle all the bills, but you're stressed out because of it, and I can help you and you don't want me to help you. Because that's some people's realities. It's like, no, I take care of her. I don't want her to work. But she's miserable because she can't do
Mhm.
nothing, because she feels like she doesn't have any money, right? Times are rough. So you can't have it both ways. You can't say, "I'm going to take care of all of it," but then when she asks you for something, it's a problem. Why is it a problem? You said you're taking care of it. Either you're taking care of it or you're not. Like, you can't tell me it's all good, but then you're stressing over here, because that's what Kurt was doing. Oh, everything's fine. We got it all together. But then he's trying to figure it out with the IRS.
Yeah. And I get that I understand that because I believe that took place in my family.
Oh,
So I
definitely.
so I was glad that he provided more information around that. He was able to, take us under the covers, under the lid, and
It's real. Yeah.
share more about it. And again, I feel like, if you're not going to communicate, then I don't see how we can get anywhere. He
And,
said some
a
no,
lot of men say that, "Oh, she talks a lot." Well, you're not talking enough. If she has to keep asking you, she's literally telling you, "I don't understand. I'm not sure what's happening here. So maybe if I ask this question another way,
yeah,
maybe I'll get a different
yeah.
answer."
Yeah, absolutely. And the other part of to me of what you're saying is that if we are able to communicate, then you're not so sensitive, because I feel that a lot of men that have been in my life have been very sensitive.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
if so they might take something I say the wrong way. But if we're communicating, and then they might think that my personality is too strong.
Oh, I
And
I absolutely detest when I hear that.
yes, yes. I'm coming to another thought around that, but still, if we're communicating, then you're seeing all different sides of me.
Hello?
You're getting to know me. You're seeing I'm not, one thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're not as sensitive, because then you understand if I say something that rubs you wrong, you might understand what I really mean, or you might be willing to say, "Hey, this is the way I took this. Is this what you meant to say? Tell me more."
Being curious is such a great way to frame how you're looking at things. And I use this all the time. Like, all the time. Because a lot of times I know for me, if I'm upset about something, I just have to be quiet. I
Mhm.
just have to be quiet because I have enough self control to realize that in the moment when I am in the emotion, there are things that may come out that I probably didn't want to frame in that way, but because I was in the emotion of it, it came out. Because I never want to intentionally hurt your feelings, but I do want to get my point across. I'm very clear about that because I have seen in relationships where people just let the offense go, let the offense go, let the offense go, and then it just explodes. So I'm not going to be complaining to you about something that happened a year ago now. I'm going to address it with you, maybe not that day, maybe the next day where I can have some thoughts about it. I'm probably going to journal it if it's important to me because I just want to see what I'm thinking at that time, where my head was. Because I could be a little like, I'm one of those people that I can envision the worst possible outcome. So I can allow my mind to go there and, like, okay, so I know that's not going to happen, but I'm letting you know. So what if you did this, honey? And he's like, well, whoa, what are you talking about? In my mind, that's how it goes, but I'm letting you know. And so that's what you say. So if I'm telling him something that's so crazy, so irrational, but I have the time to talk with him about it, it's like, well, how did you get there from what I said? I didn't mean that. I was talking about this. Then that's where the kindness and the empathy can come in, and then he can feel the need to share with me more. When that happened, I felt like this, and I'm like, oh, I could see how you would feel that way based on what you explained to me in your past. Same thing. It's like, you know what? I spoke to my mom today, and this really got me frustrated. It's like, I get it, honey, but remember when this happened, and remember how you looked at it before? Oh. And remember, you know how your mom is with that. Oh. So you actually put yourself into that situation again. You know what? You're right. So to me, Adrian, when I see couples and I'm encouraging them, I'm like, at some point, I don't know what year it happened, but at some point, this man became one of my closest friends. You hear me? So at a level, it's like I can talk to him in a way that's beyond the marriage, right? It's like when you think of, I like to frame it like your bestest friend. That person doesn't want to hurt your feelings. That person doesn't want to do anything. That person is not in competition with you. So
Yeah.
many relationships, it's like, are y'all in competition? Because I
Yeah.
don't understand why.
Mhm.
So it's like at somewhere in there, we got this really good friendship that I honor and I respect. So I've told you this before, where there are times where he's gotten me really upset. I'm like, I need to talk to my friend because my husband, I ain't really feeling him right now. I am not really feeling him. And he knows what that means. He knows what that means because it's like, let's we're out of line, we're out of whack. And
Yeah.
same thing, he can look at me and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna just be quiet for a second.
Yeah.
But I think you gotta be willing to do the work. That doesn't come, from those frivolous conversations. I mean, talking about, how did you handle that where you had to leave Jamaica? How did you handle that when you went through that crisis with your family? Like, going deep, because then
Mhm.
you get to learn how the person's wired. When you heard how the doctor talked about his relationship with his father, being a
Yeah.
pastor, and how, like, I think that's one of the key points that people can take away. In your kids are watching you. They are
Yeah.
watching you, and what you don't say says something.
Yeah.
It's like we act like, oh, they're kids and they don't see. And look at him as a grown man talking about that pain because he didn't know his father. And you would almost think that his father's no longer living.
I know. I thought that was very healthy again, that he was able to say that and his father is living, knowing that his father, I assume, could see this,
Yeah.
and that he could own that. I believe in that kind of work, that kind
That
of,
is so healthy. It's not easy, but it is healthy because, and the other thing of it, and I think he said this in the Den of Kings, where it's like now it's like I love this because I do believe life is a book. He can get to rewrite the book. He can rewrite the chapter, like what it truly is, not what he perceived it to be,
right,
because now it's like he has a new opportunity to, one, see his father as just a human trying to figure out some stuff, right? That to me is healing, when you can say, okay, this is my parent, but they were just a person trying to figure out, they didn't have any instructions to this. So I love the fact to see that he could identify that for himself and decide, like, how am I going to write this? What's going to be the next chapter for us, right?
yeah,
Because he's
yeah.
physically still here. So how can we mend some of those things? But it was very interesting to see how he was just calling it what it was. Like, I didn't know this man.
Yeah. And I thought it was interesting because for me, because I'm probably of his father's generation. I know I am because he said how old his father is. And
Okay.
so the men in his father's age range are men that I know. And
Yeah.
I know the frustrations that I have with men around my age. I
Yeah.
have one really close friend, and he is so stubborn. He is so, so stubborn, and anybody in his family would say this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he will not bend
Mm.
when it comes to um, his thought around something, where if he were to be willing to think of things differently, could
Yeah.
bring some healing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I
That's a
say
major
something, I mean
thing.
a few things.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
sure. I'm
yeah.
sure a lot of people deal with that. I find that I was having a conversation with a friend, and she was sharing about her mom and her mom being single for some time, and she was saying the same thing. And so I like to think that, when you have people around you that care about you and that love you dearly, they're not going to allow you to just do and say anything with it. At least just acknowledging, like, that was not nice, that was kind of harsh, or because people like that, it's like they just think the way they think. But it's like, however you can communicate with them and let them know, and that's why you're in this space you're in, right? Like,
Mhm,
you I have a girlfriend, beautiful woman, gorgeous, great. She's not that nice as a girlfriend. She's not that nice in a relationship. So when she tells me, like, oh, I'm like, well, you got to learn how to treat people decently. And
mhm,
so she doesn't like that because it is like in your face, like, you
mhm,
don't behave nicely. Because I've seen a lot of men be with you and leave you.
mhm,
So at some point, you have to take that ownership and say, well, what am I doing? And she, like your friend, is very stubborn. She believes that there should be, if there's an argument, there should be a huge monetary gift that is given to her. And it might need to start, it might lead to end with a chi at the end. And it might need a trip to, a certain department store to spend money that the man doesn't have to make her feel good because he did something that she didn't like. And
mhm,
so it's like, you can't expect good when you put out trash. Like, you are being trash. And
mhm,
so that's why you're not, you're meeting the men, but it's something that's going on that you are not allowing. And she has some things in her past. And, I have a way of talking to people where they get past that, like, oh, you were kind of really direct with me, to like, yeah, I know in the past I've been like this, So it's like they will own up to what they're doing. And I'm like, a lot of times, Adrian, it has to do with how they love themselves and how
yeah,
they are treating themselves, right? And how they're not able to show themselves grace. So, of course, they're not going to be able to show someone else grace. So it's like, it makes you kind of feel a bit sad for them because they're living a life that is so rigid and so hard. and they're not allowing themselves, like you said, to be able to be flexible so they can experience some things.
Yeah, yeah. Or address the things that
Yeah, yeah,
are causing them pain. And I wanted to bring up
totally.
something that, Kirk Franklin said. I had to write this
Yeah.
down, and I didn't get it all, I didn't write it all down, but the gist of it is, he says, let me look at it this way, it's easier. 75% of the time, talking about men, he said,
Hmm.
"We're scared." We're
Mm,
scared that we don't have enough money. We're scared we
yeah.
can't get an erection. We're scared we can't survive. We're scared we're gonna have a stroke. We're scared we're gonna have a heart attack. We're scared our wives are not gonna love us if they I
Yeah.
think he said something like if they see the real us or if they know the real us.
Mm,
Um,
oof.
he said that all of this, he mentioned the private struggle that men have.
Yeah.
Um, this results in toxic masculinity, he said.
Mhm.
And he said, most men think they're the only ones that are going through it.
Isn't that what I told you earlier? That's what I got from it. It's like, you're not alone. I mean, it broke my heart to see how Kevin was, obviously it's so raw for him with his brother, but it's just like, my goodness, you don't have to feel this way. You don't have to suffer alone. But I think I think he's absolutely right with that toxic
Yeah,
masculinity because you're fearful of so many things.
yeah,
And I think that's what is killing our men so early.
yeah.
Because I mean, and this past week is so fresh to think about D'Angelo.
Mhm.
And he had some battles that we didn't know about, but it's just interesting to think how, like, at one point he had gained weight and we had known him to be this sex symbol, and to hear people talk about how he like pulled away because of that. My goodness, there are women that go through this all the time, right? And so
But, like when you were just mentioning like Kev on stage,
yeah.
that I felt he was talking about grief. And I didn't get the impression he wasn't sharing that. He did talk about the load he was carrying for
Mhm.
all, you know, his brother's family and all of that. But also the grief of not having his brother there, the pain of
Mhm.
his brother not being there as he's having this success now. That is a journey that you
Yeah.
have to heal, you know?
Yes,
That's a
definitely.
solo journey in a way.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Totally. Yes, totally. I get it. I just felt as if, and I think the young gentleman that was like, he was kind of like, well, I've been through stuff too. And I think he was kind of getting like, we all, he was very much, I know he was rubbing them, but he was giving some good stuff in that, you know, and I think that was at the end where Kevin came back and was like, young man, you're only 22, but I get it now. Like, I'm seeing what you're talking about and what you've experienced. But it's just like, he talked about, like, my grandpa died. I was very close to my grandpa. Like, I remember thinking, like, when I heard Kevin, I thought about it to say, like, I remember watching my grandma on that deathbed when the hospice nurse had come in and all the things. And it was devastating to me to think that I would not see her again. But what I thought too is that she's given me everything she could. And now it's time for me to live this out. So I understand he's dealing with it and he's clearly still in the grips of it, right? But also, it's like, I want to give him a hug and be like, and then, it's kind of what you believe too, right? Like, my grandma is with me here now, So it's like, your mind, remember, that's what Kurt was saying about our mind and how we look at things and how we frame things. So it's like, we've got to find our way. And that young boy, even though he has some nurturing and growing up to do, you could tell he's mentally tough and he's willing to say, you know what, I'm going to continue to walk this out and figure it out. But it's a war. It is a war. It is a
It
war.
is. You have to be vigilant, about your journey. And I didn't want to say anything before you watch that particular episode
Yeah.
because I didn't want to cloud anything with my
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have come down on NLE, who I never
Uh-huh.
knew. That's the young
Yes. Yes. Yes.
man
Yes. Yes.
who I had never heard of him. I didn't know of him,
Yeah.
which isn't unusual for me to not know of him.
Yeah.
But he was, except for one thing he said,
Hmm.
I've said many times I study A Course in Miracles. I'm a student of A
Yes.
Course in Miracles. And everything he was saying was aligned with A Course in Miracles. And it was, uh, A Course in Miracles is not it's not unlike traditional Christianity.
Hmm.
Not Christianity and the craziness that's
Yeah.
in the world. I don't mean it
Yeah.
in that way,
Yes.
weaponized and all of that.
Hmm.
But it was something to me. I thought he was very strong because I did feel
He
that
had to be.
he was getting a lot. And I did feel that they were being condescending. And that's a thing for me. Maybe it's just my own issues. I don't like condescension. And I felt like they were being condescending just because he's 22. And, I thought he had a lot of wisdom. I thought he had a lot of strength. And when he said the one thing about Jesus,
Yeah. He needs
I think
some
he
training.
didn't. I didn't think he meant that the way that he said it.
I'm sure if he looked back at it, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but in A Course in Miracles,
Yeah.
Jesus is our brother, and
Okay.
Jesus does. It's not that we don't love him in the way that we would love him in traditional
Yeah.
Christianity,
Yeah.
but it's Jesus is saying that I'm no different from you. This is all that I know, and you could only know this too, except
Yeah.
for all the issues that we have, as humans,
Yeah.
but he's just saying that Jesus is only trying to get you to know, us to know how great we are, how loved we are, our magnificence.
Yeah.
And he was, when he said why worship Jesus, I don't think he meant that.
Hmm.
And maybe he did mean it, and
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
putting this out here, but I didn't really think he meant that the way that he said it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I thought that they were, I was a little surprised personally when they were talking about uh, traditional religion and the
Yeah.
structure of traditional religion. I understand all of that, but
Hmm.
usually when I hear adults talk about that, adults of a certain age, they'll usually
Hmm.
say, I grew up this way and
Yeah.
then I shifted. You
Yeah.
know, I needed
Yeah.
something more. I needed to break out of that confinement. And
Yeah.
not one of them said that. And so
No.
that kind of got me.
No.
Yeah.
No. And even so, because remember, Kevin was making it a point to talk about, and I've heard him talk about his church and how he grew up. And uh he made it a point to say how, pretty much legalistic and everything his church was. But to your point, he did not say kind of like he evolved and had, because for me, I appreciated the fact that I cannot, I don't get the letters right with the young man's
Oh,
name,
NLE.
but
NLE.
NLE. So I appreciate the fact that I just like people that can stand on what they believe, and
Yeah.
he was holding his own even when Ray J was trying to, because Ray J's little point was very interesting, but it was like you you showed that you didn't evolve though, because you're saying at 22 no one could tell you what to do, and at all these different years, you were learning and growing, but you wouldn't even allow him the grace to kind of be who he is without you having issue. Like, how are you communicating? So I thought that was really interesting, but we all know how he rolls. But I thought it was interesting that it seemed like Kirk did not want to kind of touch that. And so he kind of moved to something else, even though Jonathan Majors was like, you need to read the Bible. So I thought it was really interesting.
What did you think when he
Really
said
interesting.
that? what did you I'm not putting that thumb up there. I don't know how that's coming up, by the way.
I think it's my hand movements. I got to be mindful.
Okay.
Um,
What did you think when he said, "Did you read the Bible? Read it again."
So I think that that was ego. I think there was a lot of ego in that room. You know how men are, right? So they had to like work through that ego thing. And I think at that, like, it was like them two were having this little tension. And I love the way NLT was literally letting him know, like, kind of like, no, I've been through some stuff. Like, I'm here. That's why I'm here. Like, respect the fact that I'm here. But I thought that was a bit cheeky to be like, go read the Bible because okay, great. You can read it. And if you're not asking my opinion, if you're not asking for divine guidance, you'd be like, this is a bit rigmarole. They tell this, and then in this book, they say this, and it's kind of feeling like it's contradicting this. So that's kind of a very flippant way, in my opinion, just like you need to get some more learning, young man.
Yeah, yeah.
So I thought that
And
was interesting.
and I thought all he was trying to do, NLE, was
Hmm.
share his relationship and
And
where
I think
his
that's what they
relation
hired him. Yeah, that's what he was there for. I think he did a good job of doing that.
yeah, I think he did too, and I think that I've learned that not everyone can receive when they lose a loved one, that they can still have a relationship with that person in spirit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I know and I've had to make a decision. Well, this is something that I'm still going to impart because I know that this is true.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I know
Yeah.
that not everyone can receive that. And sometimes
Yeah.
I will respect the signal, that I'll get within me that says, oh, no, they can't receive this, or this might
Yeah.
hurt them more than help them.
Yeah.
But so
I
I
I
thought,
really I really like the way he was giving it to Kevin though, in regards to say like it's just the two of us, right? It's just the two of us walking, meaning him and God. And so it's like you got to walk it out, Kevin. Like honestly, I was literally like a bit surprised at Kevin because I was just like, you're kind of giving this young man grief, but what he's saying is true. Even though you're in your emotion of it, like I'm sure when he looked back at it, he was like, he was saying some good stuff, but you say no?
well, because I looked
He's
at
talked since?
yeah, he has a
Okay.
podcast that
Okay.
it's on Patreon, but they had some segments on YouTube.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, they talked about it. It's about a 20-minute clip on
Uh-huh.
his podcast that I saw.
Yeah.
And yeah, he wasn't what you just described in his reflection.
That's too funny, but you know what? That tracks with people who are rigid and like, they just want to hold on to that. And that's fine, but it's just like you've got to free yourself from it because at some point you are inflicting that pain, right? Like you keep allowing yourself to ask those questions why certain things we're just not going to know. Why did God do this? Why did God allow this to happen, right? But if I'm saying I'm trusting and I'm believing, then I have to find a way to let that go. It's not easy, but I have to because it's like I'm keep opening that wound for myself,
To
in
let
my
what
opinion.
go? To let what go? The loss, or what are you saying?
To let that emotion of it go because I can hear you say, yeah, like what LTD was saying to
You
Kevin.
are so funny.
What what's his name? See, I told you the letters kind of mess up for me. The
Hey,
young
listen,
man.
I called him all kinds of things before, it finally set in.
I'm just like,
NLE.
oof.
You said you
NLE,
said you
NLE,
said you said,
NLE.
LTD.
See? So NLE, the wisdom that was coming out of him, I think that you could at least acknowledge the fact that, okay, I'm not there yet, but I get you, young man. And he was coming around to it at the end, but to know that he still was kind of like, because essentially what you're telling me, Kevin, is I should really like be upset with God if he takes my loved one and not be able to move past it, not be able to say that, yeah, like, okay, I've been upset with God for doing things, but he's still God. He's still my father. And I still, can see that, what, even though I didn't understand that, even though it didn't feel good, I have respect for that. It made it seem like to me, like Kevin was mad at God and he took his brother and he'd only want to have a brother. Like you were close, you did all this stuff. Like, and so that's where I'm just looking like, I get it. And that's why I think, NLE was reacting that way. Because remember, he was like, my mama called me when my grandpa died. And, that's when he went into that whole story about the vision, and his grandpa left him the guns and things. So it's like, you can keep yourself in that state. And I know a lot of people that do that. It's easier to say, I'm going through this and I'm hurting from this. And it's just so hard for me. It's kind of like they want to sit in it. And it's like, you don't have to be in that because it affects you. It affects your mental health. And then the people around you. So it's like you're bringing everyone back to that again. Yes, maybe God wants you to be that leader for this family now that your brother's gone. Are you supposed to like resent the fact that you have to do that now?
I wasn't taking it that way. I mean, I had compassion around his experience, and
Yeah.
I know that a loss, it can I don't know when his brother passed. I don't know if it was a
Yeah.
few years ago
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
I don't know
I
when
don't
it
know
happened,
either. I don't know
but
either.
I know that it can take a few years
Totally.
sometimes, and
Totally.
so I have compassion around that. And I felt like he was, they were talking about vulnerability and mental
Mhm.
health. And I felt like he was sharing, this is what it is. This is what, this is what I'm doing. This is what the
Totally.
burden has been. And then I felt the main point that when he first brought it up is, this person I love so much, he should be here, to be able to take joy in this. And so
Mhm.
I felt compassion around that. And, I have to admit that, I mean, my mom has been gone for 19 years and my father,
Yeah.
like I said, has been gone since 85. And
Yeah.
I just had a dream about my father last night
Yeah.
and believe
Yeah.
that he came to me in my dream. He was so vivid. I was like,
Love it.
I think he came to me,
I love it.
and so, and I do have experiences with them spiritually, while I'm
Yeah.
awake and stuff. And so I I think he might still, just be in his process, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just I'm trying to remember, I'm trying to connect the dots because now it's been a week about just him. How was what was he talking about when he was talking about the church and, how he grew up? How was he connecting that to the loss of his brother? Do you remember? Because I'm trying to
Oh, yes.
remember.
So, and this is it, because remember, you're around church people. They're trying to console him, it's, like trying to have conversation with him, but in his mind it's like kind of like you don't get it. Like I was just talking to him, he survived this cancer, he did all these things. So it's kind of like even though everybody was trying to help him and whatever, it's still for him like, this is a lot, which I get. And I don't want to seem in any way like not compassionate for him, but I also was feeling the energy of NLE because it's like he was just trying to defend himself to say like, I just saw somebody die very close to me, like, like this is reality. And I think for me, I move more so in like, okay, this is a thing, I see the thing, now what am I going to do? So even though it may be hard, like I told you with my grandmother, she was dying, like I loved her, like she was it for me, she was the father in my mind, right? And I literally was like, she's not going to be here anymore. Like, I can't stop living. Like, she wants me to live. I have to be able to use what she's given me to help me. Now, did I have breakdowns? Like, I really like when I hear that Boys to Men song Mama, it's a bit much because it,
Mhm.
it brings me there. And I had a specific situation thinking about her in that, but And I guess too, like she was like that too. Like I remember on her deathbed, she's calling the kids and everyone. And my uncle was a bit emotional and she was like, go hug your wife and I love you, kind of like, because I just feel like we hold on to the emotions and they hurt us so. And in my mind, like if I were friends with him, I'd be like, would you want your husband, your brother to be knowing that you're hurting so bad by this? Like,
Yeah.
what can we do to help you? Because truly, and that's what I think about, like, my grandma would not want me to be upset and really just longing for her because she made it clear she going to be with Jesus. Like she knew. So I need you to put in the work, have the faith that we talked about. So in my mind, I was just like, you're not alone, Kevin. And oh, by the way, this young man is telling you yes. So don't like act like, oh, it's not the same. So I was kind of looking at Kevin kind of like, you're giving this young man a hard time and he's telling you like he's lived a lot in these 22 years. And so how has he been able to survive? If he's telling you he would pray and ask for 16 and he's now 22. So yeah, you like just listen, both of you listen so you can appreciate what you're talking about. And even NLE, he kind of calmed down a little and was like, I appreciate this. So it's like we can have that spirited conversation and still come back to like, yeah, man, you can heal from that. Be
Yeah.
grateful. How many people wish they had the ride that you and your brother were able to have together? And how many people wish they could financially support loved ones when someone passed away? So I don't allow myself to be in that state of like longing for something that I can't have. They're physically not here.
Yeah.
So I just was looking at it like, I want him to be okay. Like, it's like, but I love the way when he talked about his wife, right? Because it showed that she's been doing the work deep with him. And I love a strong Black woman that's going to tell you, I think you can do better, honey. I think you can stretch yourself. And even he talked about when she told him, like, you got to kind of do some more work on this project he was working on. He was
Yeah.
thinking in his head, like, his little feelings was hurt. He was like, oh, even though he knew she was right.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. I'm with you on what you're saying. I Because I remember thinking that he was feeling the finality of his brother being gone,
Yeah.
not existing anymore, period. That's what I was feeling.
Yeah.
And that's what I felt Anna Lee was trying to say, no, he really still exists.
Yes.
And yeah, and that's where I was also saying a few minutes ago, like some people they're not ready to hear that. They
Yeah.
can't hear that. They don't believe that. And but it's a fact. It's true.
Well,
We're not
that
done. When we leave this form, it's not over.
well, see, that's where, it's a lot of times I'm like, are we reading the same thing? Because if you're reading it, you're going to have to read all of it, right? And you're going to have to, you got to ask God for discernment so you can understand what you're reading. But we know this is the case, right? So if we are clear that these physical bodies will go, but our spirit, like, I don't know, I'm kind of old school in that. I'm rejoicing, because now I have an ancestor and it's like, you got more power now, you know? And think about it, like my grandma knew, like I was thinking the other day, like, oh, my Uncle Ken would be so proud of this. And I'm like, he knows what I'm doing. He's aware. I see little things. And it's like sometimes there could even be a smell, Adrian. And it's like, oh, that reminds me of Granny. It's like, so it's like we got to tap into that higher self and ask God to reveal to us because I believe God wants to. It's us limiting ourselves to be able to believe it, right? It's like, oh, that can't be because I saw this. Well, that's just this costume we have on, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm with you 1,000%. When did your grandmother pass?
She passed away in 20 2000 and was it, I get the days, the years mixed up. It was 2000, 2000, 2000. Yeah. Because
2000.
I have to put it in regards to like things that have already happened in
Yeah,
my
yeah,
mind. Like in
yeah.
years, I'm like, okay, it's not
Yes.
2020. No, it's 2000. Yeah.
Well, thank you for indulging me and having this
This is fun.
conversation.
I think like they were talking, lots more conversations need to happen like this. We need to be able to just share how we're feeling and know that we can talk about the things. We don't have to bury them in. We can, share with each other. I think what Kurt is doing is amazing. And I think what the
Mhm.
doctor is doing is amazing. And I think it will bring out some good things that will help us all. Because if you notice in the comments, a lot of women were writing like, this was helpful for me.
Yeah.
Because even if it's just to think like, he's being vulnerable with me. This is not easy for him. Can I be caring with his heart? Like, because, we think of men, they're these strong things, but really, they just want to be loved, right? Just like we want to be loved,
Yeah.
even though they act like they're so strong and they don't cry. And I love that. And Elise said, oh, crying is great. It is healing.
Yes. Yes. And two things that I think I'm going to share that I don't know if I thought I would share this publicly
Yeah.
is one is late last year,
Hmm.
I really just men just started like pissing me off, because I just feel
I love it. You said pissing me off.
because I just felt like men are not dealing with their shit,
Yes.
like
Yes.
doing that work. And it was bothering me so much. I think now I'm going to frame it as, they're not dealing with their mental health,
Yeah.
that the men in
Yeah.
my sphere sometimes.
Yeah.
And it was just, I just stopped with some people, I just stopped because I
Yeah.
felt like if you're a person that's not dealing with you, if you're not dealing with your stuff,
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
talk to you. I cannot engage.
I get
And
it.
and so I feel like I'm coming out of that, a little bit. And another part of it is even before that,
Hmm.
now you alluded to this earlier about yourself, just about how you care about everyone. You want to treat everyone,
Hmm.
with love and respect. And
Yeah.
that's how I feel. I want to treat, and I treat
Yeah.
everyone with love and respect and
Yeah.
kindness.
Hmm.
And, and I'm an empath. And so I have for, my life, I've felt that I have to overdo it and care about the male ego, whether it was my father's or my brother's, and everybody's different. And I remember my brother Jeff, he and I had more of an emotional relationship, and we used to argue, a
Yeah.
lot. But there was just tremendous love there.
Yeah.
And so uh, but I understood his ego and I understood my brother Russell's ego. So I might be more careful with my brother Russell's ego. And my
Uh-huh.
brother Jeff used to feel
Mhm.
like I didn't care about his ego, but I
Mhm.
felt like he could withstand what I would say, I mean, because this is sibling stuff,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
so and I remember one time we went to Buffalo to a funeral of his best friend, and we were leaving, and I was talking to some dads, and Jeff, my brother, said something like, I never talked to him with that much care, something like that, And so I said, well, I don't feel like I have to talk to you, as I just said, like, I feel like you can take it. I could just be straightforward with you.
Mhm.
And I just have gotten to the point, I don't feel like that in this moment, but I got to the point where I feel like I'm so tired of the male ego.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like,
It's
listen, I love everybody. I care
right.
about,
Yeah, yeah.
the woman's ego beside you just as much as I care about your ego. Like
Yeah,
I'm like, it's a lot of work. Like for
it
what?
is. It is.
And because I've been like beat up, not physically
Yeah,
beat up, but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
figuratively,
I
you
get
know.
it.
And so but this is, I feel like I'm feeling a little, like maybe some blocks are being, removed, and
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
feeling. Does that make sense? What I
It
said?
it does, and it's like, that's why we have to continue to talk, because I feel like I'm a researcher of people and of human behavior, and I'm always observing, and I'm really listening to hear something that is giving me insight on people. And I hear a lot of Black men talk about Black women and how we're this and that and the other. But it's like we have to be mindful of the other side, right? It's like, so why would this woman be reacting this way to you? What has happened? What have you done? It's like, even, I've been spending time on TikTok, and one of the ladies that I'm friendly with, she does like a dating show. And so she has these guys come up, and women come up on the panel, and they talk about the things. And so this guy is talking about how he did that and the other. And then at the end, he's like, yeah, and I'm not with her anymore because she's this, that, and the other. And all the ladies like erupt. It's like, well, what about what you told us you did? And it's like, somehow it's like you forget, like you have selective memory. It's like, you're saying, okay, I want this woman to have all of these qualities, but I don't have any of these things, So it's like, what, what are we doing? How are we communicating? How are we really being true to what we want? And it starts with us like saying, okay, I'm saying I want this woman to be all this, but I know I got some stuff I'm dealing with. Can I be truthful? Can we have these conversations? And then for the women, to be vulnerable and to say, I've experienced this before, so it might be uncomfortable, but I'm working through this. So you behaving in this way is very foreign to me. So I don't even know how to accept this. So let's have this conversation. I think everyone's afraid to let people really get to know who they are. Like, you've got to be okay with you, right? And all of you.
Yes.
So it's like that next relationship you go into, you are being truly Adrian. So if there's something that happens, you're going to address it. Maybe
Yes.
it's later on after the date,
Oh,
maybe it's the
yeah.
next day,
Yeah.
but you got to.
I was truly me in the last relationship. I was truly me,
Yeah.
but there wasn't
Yeah.
a willingness. And now I have come to an awareness, a deeper awareness of things that, were on me, that were
Mhm.
my fault. But
Yeah.
there wasn't a willingness to communicate. I mean, it wasn't a willingness for him to open all the way up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when we would have an argument, and we had
Yeah.
many, it was never okay, I understand. On his part. It
Yeah.
was never, I understand what you just said. There was never an apology. There was never,
See,
uh,
why do you think that is?
I don't know. And there was never a deeper insight into where he was coming from,
Ooh.
or
Yeah.
what he could have, because I can always tell you what I could do differently,
Yes.
but
Yes.
it was never, so you have to have that. Like, so there was no ability to grow from the argument.
Yeah.
And that's something that is really like, if we're gonna argue, we can argue, but it can't be pointless. Like, we have
Yeah. Yeah.
something
Yeah.
has to come from it.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. And that's where, I mean, obviously, because you're not with them, right? That's where you kind of know, is this person even worth going through this with?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because when you meet each other, you're learning things, and everyone wants to put on a good front. But after some time and you're seeing some things, like there's some questions that need to be had. And
Yeah,
maybe it's an argument, but like you said, at the end of that argument, I should have a better understanding of you and why you're wired the way you are, and vice
yeah,
versa. You got to have a willing partner, right? Like, to at least try to make it work. It's not easy. Not easy at all. But
Mm-mm.
at the end of the day, at least you know you tried, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
that's all you can do is try.
Mhm. Absolutely. Wow. We'll just absorb all your good energy
Oh,
from your good relationship, your wonderful relationship.
girl, it is a struggle each day, I tell you, because like you said, we are growing, and
Mhm.
it's like we we choosing to grow together? Are we
Yes.
choosing to build together? So there's a lot of check-ins. I like Jay Shetty and his wife, they yearly, and it might be more frequent than that, but they check in and it's like, do you still want to be married? And that's a tough question. Because
Whoa.
what if you get that answer, no, I don't? Like, what do you do with that? Okay, well, I'm glad you let me know. But it's like you want to check in and make sure that you're moving in that same direction and you have in life and kids and bills and stuff. Like, yeah, sometimes it's just like, I want us to go back to when there was none of this other stuff, just us, not having to think about all the things. But
Yeah.
here we
Wow.
are.
Absolutely. I'm gonna share in the beginning, in the intro, all about you, but still let people know a little bit
Yeah.
about 90 Day Wins and how they can reach you.
So 90 Day Wins is my baby. It's where I do my coaching, my 90 Day Wins coaching, where I believe each 90 days is an opportunity for you to move closer towards your goals. And 90 Day Wins podcast is where I talk with people I call goal getters. Those are the people that I bring on to help encourage other people to take action. It's not about waiting for the perfect moment, but it's moving with intention for what you want to achieve. And you can find me everywhere at 90 Day Win. So Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok now. I'm enjoying TikTok. So that's where I am. And I'm here to let you know, as well as YouTube here on at 90 Day Wins. But I believe we can stop talking about what we want to do and actually take action so we can achieve our goals.
Yes,
That's what I
and
do.
you often do TikTok lives, and
Yes, I
yeah,
do.
yeah. Well, thank you so much, and I
Thank you.
know
This was fun.
you it was fun. It's the time for rest as well,
It is.
so I hope you get some good, good rest.
Yes, I will. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.